Welcome to the Love, Listen, Talk, Repeat podcast. I'm Wendy Capewell, your relationship specialist, and this podcast is all about things relating and affecting relationships. I'll be interviewing guests who are experts in their profession, learning more about what they do and how they help others. In some episodes, I'll be sharing some insights and tips of my own. So settle back and enjoy. Today, I'm going to be talking to the lovely Kate Bacon. Kate, I met, actually, we were both in a similar course, and it was called Selling from the Heart. And we kind of clicked, and we've kept in touch ever since, which is lovely. Kate has changed her career along the way. In some ways, and or her passions, but at the moment she's a yoga teacher and it's one of her passions. So part of what we're going to be talking about is that, but we're also going to be talking about relationships, because that was a chat we had a few weeks ago, wasn't it, Kate? So please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kate, as Wendy kindly introduced me. And yes, in the last couple of years, I've been starting to teach yoga. I've been practicing for a very long time, since I was 19. And I finally took the plunge and did my teacher training course 2 years ago. And I've been teaching face-to-face in Brighton, but I'm now looking at expanding my reach by teaching one-to-one yoga, which I prefer, to be honest, than teaching groups. But I'm going to do it by Skype, which might sound a little bit crazy, but I do have a background. All my other business work has been online. I've done website design and social media training over the years, and I started out as a virtual assistant supporting coaches and trainers. So I'm used to completely working on Skype and being online. So this is something new. I've tried it out and it works. So let's hope that it's going to work kind of as a business as well.
That's really great, because I think so much more is going online now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I think with the advent of things like Skype, and I use Zoom a lot, and I think, there's so much that's going digitally, and reach more people. And if it works, why not? Because it means that you can contact more people and help more people. And I think that's wonderful.
Exactly. And the thing is, I mean, historically, yoga has been all about doing a face-to-face class. So if you want to work with a particular teacher, you have to be in their location and where they're teaching. So when you do it online, obviously you can work with people anywhere in the world. And I've tried this out with people in Spain and people in California and in Canada. So it really doesn't even matter, apart from the time difference, unless you want to teach in the middle of the night. You're going to kind of watch out what hours you are working. But it means it's completely accessible to everybody, which is great. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's the time difference, isn't it? So yes, you have to keep that in mind. Yeah, absolutely. So talking about relationships and stuff, and I guess one of the things you said to me was that yoga is about self-acceptance and helping us to access and accept ourselves. And I think that's such a lovely thing to be able to do. So tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, it's something that I probably didn't verbalize or hadn't kind of really quite worked out for myself until probably about a year and a half ago. And I was going through a bit of a rough patch myself and wasn't feeling very happy with myself as a person for various reasons. And I realized that the only time that I actually felt good about myself and could relax was when I was doing my yoga or meditation practice. So I just think there's a real, I don't know, there's something like really calming about doing yoga. If you look at kind of medical evidence for it, it basically works on your, and I'm going to get it wrong now, whichever the opposite to the fight or flight bit of your nervous system. So the one that kind of calms you down. So definitely medically, it's been proven that it actually works on that part of your brain and your mind, so that it definitely calms you down. And I also think that when you're physically moving through the postures, your mind hasn't got time to run all that chatter and stuff going through it. So you can kind of let go of some of the self-talk, which I'm sure I'm not the only one, has kind of negative self-talk from time to time. And you can just focus on moving and following your breath. That's the huge thing about it. So moving with your breath just really kind of brings your kind of anxiety level down. And I just think it helps you connect with something inside yourself that maybe you're not really aware of generally. A real sense of kind of peace and contentment.
And that's pretty awesome, I think, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think, as you said, that mind chatter that goes on it and the anxiety and all that other stuff, it really causes so much stress, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, people teach yoga from very, very different perspectives. Some people do it as like a hardcore kind of workout, but I just think that you're missing out on so much if you don't kind of bring in the kind of mind, body, spirit element about it as well, because it's just really, really, really powerful kind of tool.
Yeah. So when we chatted last time, and I can see that, this self-acceptance is really great. And I wonder, because we did go on to talk about relationships, didn't we, last time we had a chat. And I'm wondering how much the yoga has actually helped you with maybe that acceptance of others as well, do you think? Or has it made you calmer, or more able to work things out?
I think so. I think it's sort of just kind of, it feels like it's really grounding, so that then when you kind of think about something and try and work something out, maybe what you want in life, what you're looking for, you're coming from a much calmer place. It's not kind of all frenetic and, I need this, I need that, I need the other. It's more about, and I've been thinking about this and working actually with a coach on it as well, looking at relationships from a point of view of, like, traditionally, often I think people think, I have to have a checklist of what I want in a relationship and from somebody else. So I'm now starting to think about it as thinking about how I want to feel. So working on how I want to feel in my life and in relationships with other people. And then kind of exploring and meeting other people and seeing what happens, and then kind of coming back to myself and going, so how did I feel? How did I sort of almost doing a checklist, but against myself rather than the other person. So basically it means that you allow the other person to be completely themselves. You allow yourself to be yourself, but you're really just checking out whether it's a good match on if you're feeling the kind of things that you want to feel. If that makes sense. It sounds a little bit kind of...
No, I think there's quite a lot of value in that. I really think there's something very valuable in knowing ourselves first. Because if we don't know about ourselves, about our personalities, I very much believe in working out what our core beliefs and values are. In other words, what is it that we... And really knowing ourselves, and it can be, it's our personality traits or what we might want in life. So I think it's knowing what makes us the person we are. And it's fascinating how when I have conversations with people, they sometimes look at me and go, huh? They haven't got a clue what I'm talking about.
No, exactly.
But what makes you the person you are? I know probably 90% of what makes me the person I am. But then that then you looking at somebody else and saying, well, do those core values and beliefs, do they kind of fit?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it, if I'm a sensitive person and I've got somebody who really isn't going to connect with me on that level in any shape or form, and they're just, it doesn't mean anything to them, how would we get on?
Exactly. So it's like, unless you know yourself, how on earth can you figure out whether you're going to have, a positive connection with somebody else?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's something about that. And it is about acceptance, isn't it? It's accepting ourselves for who we are and then accepting the other person.
Exactly. So it's not about wanting to change the other person at all. It's about completely accepting them as they are. And it's like, you're never going to have a perfect, everything is going to fit, and it's going to be like 100%. I mean, it's probably completely unrealistic. And I think it's funny because I think a lot of dating happens online. I know I've done a lot of online dating over the years, and it can become such a checklist.
Yeah.
It's like the other person has to have this, 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 and this. And if they haven't, then you'll immediately just strike them off. And sometimes it's like you don't even give yourself time to actually have a conversation with somebody. I mean, I'm also on the other side, quite a firm believer in intuition. And I know from my own experience, and quite recently I was chatting with someone online, and it was kind of, the conversation was going a bit strange. We were just messaging. We weren't even on Skype. And then they didn't reply for a long time. And then they suddenly came back out of nowhere. And I thought, oh, well, I've got nothing to do. I'll start chatting with them again. And actually, my intuition was like going, actually, that person's not really respecting you that much, because they've just disappeared out of a conversation, haven't explained that they were going away to work abroad for a month, and just basically, you know, disappeared. And then they come back and they're like, oh, do you want to chat? And it's like, really, my intuition was going, no, actually, I don't. And then I did. And of course, what happened is during the process of the conversation, even more showed up about how that's kind of how they behave. They can just like disappear out of nowhere and not communicate clearly. So really, really, there's something about being open-minded and, you know, allowing someone to be themselves. But also, if you've got any kind of feeling, any kind of red flag feeling coming up for you, really listen to it, because honestly, normally your intuition really is quite on the ball, even if your head's trying to tell you something different. Somewhere down here, I don't know where in the heart, the gut somewhere is like going, no, listen to this. There's something going on here and it might not be so great.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that, because if we don't, if somebody treats us like that and they're not respectful to us, then do we stop respecting ourselves?
It's a really, really good point. Exactly.
Because you're going to be the one who's going to be treated like a dishcloth or something, picked up and dropped whenever you're needed.
Totally.
So there's something very valuable about that, isn't there?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, many people think there's security in being in a relationship. What are your thoughts about that?
Maybe I'm a bit different on that. I think I'm not even sure who sells us this idea. Society, kind of. I mean, I guess it is part of society, and I guess in our Western society, it's still quite the kind of heterosexual couple, family, nuclear. No one says nuclear family anymore, but I remember when I was growing up, everyone was like talking about the nuclear family. Now it sounds like nuclear war. I don't know, maybe it's too much. Trump, do you know what I mean? No one wants to mention nuclear anymore. But do you know what I mean? That whole kind of setup where you had like a man and a woman, and then they got together and got married and had babies and children, had a family, and then this unit, this is sort of separate from the world. So I guess that's definitely what I grew up with. It's not something that I ever particularly thought was a great thing. I mean, I suppose every family has their stuff going on, and in hindsight, in looking back, I can see a lot of stuff that went on in our family was just about people's emotional problems and maybe not expressing stuff was going on for them, and then it kind of can erupt in kind of arguments and stuff. Whereas at the time, I was just like telling my mum and my dad that they should be divorcing. I know, 10-year-old, here we go. So I don't know, quite, maybe I'd been watching too much TV and thought families had to be like completely perfect. I don't know. But I think I've never really, I mean, I don't know what it was, but ever since I was young, I was like, I never want to get married and have kids. Whereas, you know, most other people my age and who I grew up with, that was really what they aspired to. And not everyone's done it, because I know we have get-togethers with some of the girls I was at school with, and we're all in our early 50s now, so we were at school a long time ago. And a surprising number did not just get married in their 20s and have babies. I mean, some did, and they've now got adult children, but a few of us didn't, and we've gone and done different things and worked abroad and had different kinds of relationships and stuff. So, but I sort of grew up with this sort of idea that that's what you were meant to do, but it never really resonated with me. So
I would question whether being in a relationship brings security.
Going back to your question, I've sort of veered up. You're absolutely right, and I don't think it does, because if you look at it, you know, I mean, especially people think when they're married, that's it. Then they're safe with someone and they don't have to worry. That's it. But anyone in a relationship, either side, can leave at any moment.
Aren't you just putting all your hopes, aspirations, everything else on somebody else? Is that not the danger? If you're not careful.
You know, it's true, because really, are we looking in a relationship to find happiness because someone else is bringing it to us? Or are we looking for the happiness in ourselves? And I guess that comes back to yoga and meditation and all the kind of things that I'm interested in. Finding that peace of mind, that happiness within ourselves, and then taking that full kind of, you know, aspect of who you are as a person, and then connected with someone else, or more than one person in my case, because I'm in open relationships. And so bringing your full self, but not expecting someone else to give you something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear quite often, you know, about I want to make my partner happy. But we're responsible for our own happiness, in my mind.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, relying on somebody else for security, relying on somebody else for happiness, relying on somebody else to solve our problems.
Yeah.
Does that not leave us to some degree in that childlike state?
Yeah.
I don't know.
To me, it feels very disempowering.
Yeah.
And also, you're also giving up the responsibility for yourself as an adult, I think.
Yeah.
And I've got quite a big thing about grown-ups taking responsibility for their own emotional, physical, and whatever else well-being.
Yeah.
I don't think it's up to anyone else to do that for us. I think it's up to us. I mean, you know, at the same time, that doesn't mean that you close yourself off to other people and being supported and helped by other people at all. But it's like, you know, when it comes down to it, we've all got to really take responsibility for ourselves, haven't we, really? I think.
Okay.
But lots of people
no, and a lot of people won't. And I think this is what I love about talking to different people, is that we all have different views and different perspectives. And no one has to agree with us. I think it's a talking point. It's somewhere for people to start thinking about it. You know, well, no, I don't agree with that. But if somebody actually doesn't agree, it means that they've actually got an opinion and they've actually got a view about something, and there can't be anything bad about that, in my view.
No.
You know, too much apathy.
I'm certainly not saying I hold the right and only view at all. But
No, it's your view, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So you tell me that you have open relationships. Tell me more about that. Tell us, the listeners too, if you're happy to share that.
I'm fine. That sounds like I have a heck of a lot of sex. It's not necessarily true.
Okay.
That's probably the first thing that people think. Great.
Yes.
No, try and schedule all these different partners. It could be a nightmare sometimes. So basically, this is something I've been exploring for probably the last couple of years. And I just came to the thought one day, or was just thinking one day about, why am I expecting one person to meet all my needs in terms of a relationship? I mean, that's really where it mainly came from. It just seemed a little bit unrealistic to me. So
I agree.
You know, I have friends and I have friends on different levels that, you know, we have different interests and different ways that we connect with each other. And I'm thinking, why can't you do that with romantic relationships at the same time? And I had a kind of little bit of a kind of look around and have a think about it, and read stuff online. And I came across, a website that was really interesting called Relationship Anarchy. So that's sort of the idea behind relationship anarchy, is that you don't have a hierarchy of different relationships. So most people would put their one-to-one relationship with their partner, as in, you know,
significant other.
I mean, you call them what you want, kind of above everything else, and then maybe their family will be there, and maybe their friends will be there, but definitely this one relationship would kind of top everything else. So in relationship anarchy, the idea is that you might have one or more lovers, and they'll be no more important than your family, no more important than your friends. I mean, You could have a friendship that turns into a romantic relationship that then just becomes friends. I mean, you can be a bit more fluid with things. But the big thing is, it's not like you are in this couple and therefore you are the most important thing and you're kind of the couple against the world.
Right.
And I think it's kind of interesting. And the whole thing it was all very ethical. The whole point was, it's not like someone maybe becoming dissatisfied with part of their relationship with their significant other and then going, right, I'm going to go and look for something else with someone else. But, I don't really want to split up with my partner, so I'll kind of do something on the side. It was absolutely nothing about that. It was all about being really clear and really open and asking for what you want and talking about your needs and negotiating things. And I'm thinking, this sounds like really a good kind of philosophy, and I think I'm going to kind of see where that takes me. So really basically that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Recently I've been reevaluating it a bit because a lot of people I do meet online, and I'm just starting to realize that there are some people that kind of follow this philosophy and they're fully embracing it and they're really open about it. And they might be on a dating website and they might have one primary partner that they have a link to so that everybody knows what's going on. But, outside of that, both those partners could be looking to have other relationships with other people. I'm like, yeah, that's great. And then you get a lot of people who go, oh, I'm in an open relationship. And when you kind of dig a bit deeper, it's like, I don't think your partner is like quite so blissfully aware that you're in this open relationship or they're in an open relationship. And you realize that they're kind of saying they're in an open relationship because it's quite kind of cool and trendy, but in actual fact, their partner knows nothing about it.
So that's cheating.
Yeah, of course it's cheating.
Yeah, and that's a real distinction because,
yeah,
there is a real distinction there. Yeah.
And there's also a whole, there can be different. So there's relationship anarchy on one side, which like that philosophy doesn't have any kind of hierarchy. And then there's another very similar philosophy called polyamory, which is having multiple relationships. Now that can be a bit hierarchical because you can choose to have a primary partner and then have other partners kind of at different levels. It doesn't really mean they're less important, but it also acknowledges the fact that you might have one person that is going to be more significant in your life. And I'm kind of veering a bit more down that route at the moment, thinking that I've been the sort of secondary partner of a few people over the last couple of years. And I think now it's time that I want to kind of have a bit more of an ongoing and meaningful relationship with, heaven forbid, one person over all these others. So this is hence why I actually put off doing this recording, because I'm thinking maybe I'm going back to monogamy now.
Right.
I don't know, but I don't think I am. But I think I realise that within this whole setup, it can lead to, and my experience has been, it can lead to a bit of sort of flitting in and out of connections with people that don't really last and don't really kind of turn into anything a little bit more meaningful. And I'm feeling a bit like, I don't want to wake up every morning with the same person. In fact, I was lying in the bath the other day going, oh, that would be my greatest fear, if I have one person next to me every single morning. In fact, I love living on my own. I don't even want to live with anyone at the moment.
Okay.
Might change, I don't know. I have lived with someone in the past. For 4 years, we were exclusive with each other. But at the moment, I love my own space. And I think the older I get a bit more set in my ways. So I like things like this. No, I don't want you to come in and leave your mess and your socks and whatever else around and wake me up when I don't want to be woken up, etc. But, I'm human and I want connections with other people as well. So for me, it's a bit like a happy medium. But yeah, I am starting to think more on the lines of maybe I need to be a bit more focused in my search for someone who's, a bit more important rather than just a casual thing that never really turns into anything a bit more meaningful.
So are all these, when you have these encounters or relationships, are they always sexual or are they sometimes friendships or?
So far, they have all been sexual. I mean,
okay.
people that haven't turned out that way. But then I guess because I'd say I was openly dating, but yeah, that's been not the primary, but a very important focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no reason why, you couldn't, meet people, and if there wasn't that spark, you of course you might get on another level and want to be friends with them. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, Kate, the distinction, because you said that you have been the secondary person in these relationships up until now. So I'm just wondering, I just want to pose a question. What's the difference between that and being a mistress?
Ooh.
That's a tough one, I know. But it came into my mind. You okay me asking you that?
Absolutely. I think the difference is because if you're somebody's mistress, generally it's all hidden and nobody knows about it.
Right.
It's not an open, it's not like their primary partner or generally their spouse would know about the mistress. It's all very secretive and undercover.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like being an ethical mistress.
Yeah.
My God, I don't know. I'm not sure I like the sound of that.
No, it just raises questions, doesn't it? Because when we've been in relationship, I've been secondary to a married man. I'm not, I don't think it was something I'm really proud of thinking back on it, but because it was all hidden and it wasn't right for her. I mean, not that I would ever say anything to anybody, and it's also that for me, when I was in that situation, it was about my self-respect. I'm not saying it's for you, but for me, it was thinking back on it. Well, I wasn't worth being that primary, and I think that's made the change for you when you've talked about that, because you said I don't want to be second anymore. I want to be the top dog almost.
Yes, I know.
I want to be first.
Yeah, and I don't think for me it's been about self-respect, though. I mean, I'm always willing to look at myself and see whether something's going on there. But I think for me there was also a bit of convenience about not wanting to be. That was awful, because before I started doing this, I'd been in a relationship with someone for 3 years and we hadn't lived together, but I felt absolutely stifled by it. So I know, in all honesty, that part of what I'm doing now is almost a bit like being completely 180 degrees opposite from that. So I have wondered whether part of my reason for going down this route is because I don't want to ever be in that situation again where I felt I couldn't fully be myself.
Yeah.
Because I felt I was always, it's funny because I felt I was actually coming second in the relationship to this other person I was with, because it seemed like their opinion and what they wanted was always more important than what I wanted.
Yeah.
So part of it was about taking back my own autonomy and being independent and doing things and doing relationships on my terms. But I'm also seeing that in doing that, I've kind of maybe put myself into the other side of the situation where I don't feel I'm getting enough from the connection, the relationships I have. They're a bit too fleeting. They're a bit too, there's not enough. I want a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is all about me being an utter control freak and saying, right, it's got to be absolutely perfect, because I was saying at the beginning, right, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. Like, if I just line everything up and it's like they're a primary, so therefore I see them a bit more. But yeah, we're not exclusive, so that's great. That gets rid of the whole feeling stifled situation. So maybe that will work. I don't know.
No, and I think it's always I find it interesting to explore these things about what we want and how we feel about things, because I think there are all kinds of different relationships, and I think the more I've been doing these podcasts, I think the more I'm talking to people and finding out more about relationships and how different they can be, and even clients I work with, they have different relationships, and I think as long as there's the basics there, like honesty and respect and all you know, those basic things are there. I think how people work their relationships is totally down to them.
Absolutely.
And if they want commitment and if they want exclusivity, then that's fine. But if they don't, and they can work it, and there isn't any jealousy, which is, that's the next thing that crops up with everybody. Well, I think how we got into talking about this, you and me, was I posted something up on Facebook, and it was about, I think there'd been an item on Loose Women where they talked about open relationships, and I started a whole thread of people talking, and there were some people that were responding to me and saying, there's no way, because I'm not going to share my partner with anybody. I couldn't cope with being second best or being, you know, worrying about someone else. So I'm interested on your take on it.
Oh, jealousy is an interesting one, isn't it? It really is. I think for my own self, I found that I don't feel jealous if I feel secure in who I am as a person. So that is the kind of big thing to start with. So it's about feeling really grounded and content and happy within myself. There's also something about really honestly believing that one person isn't able necessarily to meet all your needs. And there's also something else to add in the mix about our relationships are different with every person. So if maybe I'm partners with one person and they've got another partner as well, the relationship I have with that person in the middle is going to be completely different from the other person's relationship with that person. So no one can actually replicate my relationship with anybody. It's going to be unique. So in that way, I don't feel jealous. I mean, of course, if someone was not giving me any kind of attention and I never saw them, then I might start feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But something else I wanted to talk about in here, and I can't remember what it was. So there's something about feeling okay in yourself, something about knowing that no one else can replicate your relationship with someone else. I forget what the other thing was. Oh, it's really important. I feel like I need to go and look at some notes I wrote somewhere.
It may come back to you in a minute, don't worry. Because I just wonder about that. There is something very much about jealousy coming from ourselves and not being about the other person necessarily. Yes. Now, if somebody else has... Go ahead. Go on. It's triggered you there.
So why do we feel... what makes us feel jealous? Why do we feel... It's something about not being secure in who you are as a person. I really honestly think it's more about that than anything else.
Yeah, and I think that there's something about that definitely. Not being good enough, so it can be about growing up or experiences. I think it can be, if we've had a partner that has cheated on us, then that can lead to it, because we'll have that sense of what if it happens again, because you experience that heartache. Because I really think heartache, for me, when I've had heartache, and I know to talk to others, it's not just an emotion, it's a pain. It's a pain that really hits you right in the heart. And to experience all of that upset and misery and that lack of trust, I think, can be a big thing. So I think there's a mixture really, but generally, unless somebody is an absolute love rat and you can't trust them, it's generally ourselves. That's where it starts from. But that's simplistic. For a lot of people, that will be quite a simplistic response. And
it would be maybe a bit too logical. Like, in my head that makes sense, but that's not what I feel here. That's totally not what I feel.
And I think the problem is today with so much with social media, I'm finding so many times now that there's a lot more indiscretions going on. Some of them be texting each other behind their partner's back. They'll be messaging on Facebook or wherever else, and so much easier to catch someone out because someone will pick someone's phone up and then they'll start just going through it, and Exactly. And that I'm finding a lot. And there's also, it might be mild flirtation that may not have been seen or noticed before technology.
Yeah.
And therefore it boosted those two people that were flirty with each other, but it didn't mean any more.
Yeah.
But now it can be written, it's got much more meaning.
Yeah.
So it's curious how we are going socially in the world. Yeah. Fascinating stuff.
But also I think there's something else around. I've been a firm believer for a long time, since I had a relationship and lived with someone in my 20s. And like the ground, kind of it wasn't like a ground rule, but kind of the basis for that relationship was, we're going to be together as long as we both want to be together. So none of this promising forever, just being completely realistic, but saying, and I think that whoever you're with, if they want to be with you, you'll be together. And if they've gone off with someone else and they haven't told you about it, maybe they don't want to be with you that much any longer. And painful as it is, maybe that's just something that needs to be on some level accepted. I mean, again, this is very simplistic, and you know, I'm not quite sure. I mean, this is not really, you know, if I said that to someone who is in a married relationship, they'd be probably horrified. But right, so they've gone off me and they're going out with someone else, and I just need to accept it. So, but do you know what I mean? There is something about, I think, we have connections with people and we stay together for as long as we both want to.
And I think that if somebody goes off with someone else, quite often it means there's something lacking in the relationship. Now, you can put that responsibility on both of you, because if you're both neglecting the relationship in one way or another, and if you haven't got the ability, the balls, the honesty, the care, the affection, whatever it is, to be able to say to your partner, or even listen.
Yeah.
If you're not going to sit down and talk to your partner and say, look, things aren't going right, I don't feel this is right, then relationships, they will drift apart, and one will wander off and find, either they'll find somebody else, or they'll find a distraction, or they get involved in their work or a hobby or something. They'll emotionally leave that relationship. Sometimes it's sad, because I think relationships that are strong could be repaired if only they communicated with each other.
Yeah. Oh my God. Tell me about it.
Communication
is just like everything, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And it can be so hard, especially if one person is quite emotionally, it sounds like I'm being, you know, like kind of superior, but if you've, you know, got a fairly, you know, good level of, you know, accepting of yourself, and you're kind of quite self-aware, etc. And maybe you're with someone else who really doesn't know how to deal with their feelings or communicate about their feelings. That can be quite difficult.
Yeah, and I think I've worked with couples who said, you know, talked in front of me openly and said, well, you know, I'm really not happy, or this isn't happening, or that. And the other ones said, I haven't heard that before. And the first one said, well, I've been telling you this for years. And there's something about not being open or listening. It's do we get defended, or what happens to us? Or do we just think, well, they're there and therefore I don't need to worry?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe.
There's lots of reasons for it, but it's fascinating when I can get two people sitting down in front of me and actually getting them to hear each other.
Oh my God. Isn't that seriously the biggest thing? The biggest thing. And for me, that's been so important. Like my whole life, I've always, one of my big values is feeling heard.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
Oh, and it's like, it doesn't really matter if you know, and also, oh my God, and this is another thing, it's a niggle I have about men, I have to say, in particular about men, because I've had relationships with men and with women. What is this thing with men that they seem to want to tell you what they think you want to hear, rather than their truth?
That's an interesting one, isn't it?
And I don't know, for me, that just seems to be so strongly apparent in so many men I've come across.
Really? So you found that more in men than women?
Yeah. Oh God, women just will offload everything. It can be a little bit over the top sometimes from my experience, but men, I don't know. It's like they just, I think, and again, you know, I'm feeling here I'm about to like launch myself and dig myself into a hole of just being completely stereotypical. But it seems that often men seem to just want a quiet, and I've talked to male friends of mine about this. So it's not like this has just been in relationships I've had, it's been in friendships as well. So I've talked to them about it and said, I just really want to kind of understand this. And I think some men have actually said to me, oh, we just want an easy life. So we think if we say what you want to hear, that will make our life easier. Rather than just like go, okay, you know, I can't do this, or I can't give you this, and maybe this isn't working, and being completely honest and go, right, okay, now we know where we are. So this whole kind of like fabrication of what's going on for them, so that you feel as a partner or a friend of this person that there's some kind of relationship going on, and from their point of view, it's something completely different because they're not really being honest about it.
No, and I wonder whether there's something about people. I get so many people saying to me they don't like conflict.
Oh,
Not conflict, no, that's the wrong word. They don't like confrontation, but what they mean is they don't like conflict. Yes. But I think that stops people from saying what they really feel, because they don't know how to say what they feel without it becoming conflict.
And you know what? You know, I will stand completely honestly here and say I've probably been in that situation as a woman. So, you know, maybe I need to like quit my gender stereotypes here and go, actually, from a female point of view as well, or from my own point of view, sometimes it can be difficult to be honest because you know it's not going to land very well with the other person.
Well, it doesn't if you actually point your finger at the other person and say, yeah, you. Mm-hmm. If you own it and say, this is what I'm feeling.
Sometimes it's, you know, even some of it, I find it still doesn't land very well.
Doesn't it?
Even when, because I try to be really careful when I say something. Yeah. To point the finger and blame and say, okay, this is what's going on for me and this is how I'm feeling in response to. And sometimes it's, yeah. I think just because as humans, maybe we're hardwired to hear someone saying something to us that feels critical as personal.
And I don't think we've learned as humans how to communicate effectively. Yeah. I really think that as soon as somebody says something negative, we pick up on that one word, that's it, and away we go with it.
Yeah.
And therefore we're not going to even be open and honest and of course when we hear that truth, it hurts. And so what happens if we feel hurt is that we tend to lash out at the other person again. And then it just escalates.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of my missions is to help people communicate more effectively, because I think if they can communicate better, then they're going to every relationship's got to be better, surely.
Oh my God. And you know what? You know, I count my relationship when I was in my 20s, when I lived with my partner for 4 years, as my successful one, because we were honest and we did communicate clearly with each other.
Yeah.
And it was really refreshing. And we ended up splitting up, and all our friends were going, we don't understand why you've split up. You're so happy together. And it's like, well, I wanted to go to America. She wanted to do something else. So we split up. And it wasn't hard for 2 years because, you know, we were doing different things. And, you know, although we'd agreed to do it, it was still a bit like, oh, this is a bit strange. It took about 2 years to really become friends. But we've been friends ever since, 20 more years. Yeah, just clearly saying what you want and how you're feeling. And
that is a real tough one, isn't it? It is tough, and people do find it a hard one. So that leads me on to asking, how do you handle expectations that come up in a relationship? Because it's all around that, isn't it? Expectations.
Nothing beats just having a clear conversation about it.
Really. And we've led back now by saying this is what we talk about communication, but then when we try and say about expectation, we get caught in that
I think
in that bind, don't we?
I think maybe it's easier at the beginning. It comes back to knowing what you want yourself. And if you're really clear about what you want yourself and you can just communicate that clearly to someone else, almost like before you've even started, being too emotionally entangled with each other. It's like, and I guess it needs to be kind of at that early kind of level, then you can be really clear about what you want and really work out whether you're going to be a good match for each other. I mean, that sounds so clinical. I'm sorry.
No, I think the problem is with expectations, that we have expectations, and then that can actually, it can really devastate us and wreck relationships. I mean, one of the things that one of the examples I use is, okay, so I'm going to use a stereotypical man and woman, right, for no other reason, but just because it simplifies it. So he's had a busy day at the office. He's been working up in London, and he's come home on the train. It's been a stressful day. It's a stressful journey. There's problems on the line, and he's really overloaded. And in his head, all he wants is to sit down, have a nice meal, a couple of glasses of wine, and chill. That's his expectation of the evening. He walks through the door, and his partner, she has got two youngsters, and they've been vomiting all over the place all day. There are toys everywhere. The place is in complete disarray, and there's, no food at all. And she's absolutely overwrought and kind of fires at him the minute he goes in the door. So he says, well, okay, so what are we going to have for dinner? Well, I don't know what the bleep bleep you think I'm going to do. What the bleep bleep do you think I've been doing all day? I've had a bleep bleep awful day. So we've got two very overwrought people. So he says, okay, let's have a look in the fridge. And there's nothing in the fridge. So, well, you haven't got any shopping. Well, what do you expect, So now that can go one of two ways then. It can either go, well, I'm really sorry this has happened. Let's get a takeaway. How can I help? Let's sort it out. Deep breath, and you can both deal with it. Or you stay in that rut and you just, because her expectations are that he's going to just help her out when he gets in the door. Look, I've had a really crap day, and in every shape or form. And so that she's got expectations. But of course, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But that's what happens, is that our expectations get blown out the water because we haven't communicated. Now, that could have been stopped. It could have been eased by her texting him, messaging, whatever, and saying, look, I'm sorry, I haven't got any food in. The children have been ill all day. I wonder if you could pick up a takeaway. I know you were looking forward to a quiet evening, whatever. And him texting and saying, I've had a really rough day today. Can we just chill? If they'd communicated that, their expectations would have been far more realistic, and they could have resolved it.
Right. But often we don't, do we?
No. We have it in our head. This is what I want. This is what I'm expecting. This is what's going to happen.
We don't communicate it with someone else. So we're kind of expecting them to be able to mind read.
Yes. But that happens in one incident, but that can happen in the whole relationship.
Oh my God, about really important things around values. You can expect someone to have this belief that you have yourself. You've never expressed it. You've never talked about it. And then when suddenly they're showing you some behavior that goes completely opposite that belief or that value, you're like, what?
Exactly, because it's all in our heads. This is what I want. This is what I envisage of the relationship, but I haven't actually communicated that.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, fascinating, isn't it?
Your example was great though, because that is just so, I'm thinking on bigger picture, oh yes, what's important in life and values. And it's like, actually, it comes down to the everyday nitty gritty. I've had a bad day. You've had a bad day. Let's kind of work this out by just communicating clearly, rather than thinking the other person is going to totally meet our needs as soon as they come home, or we miss that, or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you can have that expectation on a date as well, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's going to go like this. The other person thinks it's going to go like that, and it's like, oops, that was a little bit of a mismatch, and we didn't talk about it.
So do you have any tips for navigating that myriad of emotions that come up in relationships? Because, wow, don't they just?
Oh, God. I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself a lot, but I just think really getting really clear on what's important to you and getting really clear about how you're feeling to start with, and then just being honest about it, honest and communicating clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between being able to communicate our emotions and being really needy and dumping it all on the other person.
Yeah.
This is what I need. You've got to give me this because I'm feeling, you know, for example, I'm feeling insecure. So I want you to keep reassuring me. And then kind of all of that stuff, because I think that can go the other way, can't it? You know,
I think that's where it comes back to taking responsibility for looking after yourself, ultimately.
Difficult when we're feeling very emotional or low, or there's a lot to manage, isn't there?
Yeah, I think maybe it's about, I mean, I work with a coach in the States, and we have a quarterly virtual retreat with a number of us called Cycle. And it's all about like really good self-care. And it's not, you know, self-care is not about having bubble baths and chocolates and putting your feet up. It's about getting clear about what your needs are and knowing that it's actually your responsibility to meet your own needs. But that also means that you can ask for things as well. So sometimes it might be that your need is, I just need some space on my own. So just saying no to an invitation for something that you would otherwise have felt kind of obligated or felt you should do.
Yeah.
So I guess it's almost like radical self-honesty to start with.
Yes, and I think possibly, and I think you live on your own, I do too, and I think there comes that thing that when you are self-sufficient, then you don't, you have to look after yourself. You have to make sure that you are, you care for yourself, that you look after your needs, that you, that self-care is really important, because you can't, for some things that those in relationships, they may run to their partner about and cry on their shoulder. You don't have that. You've got to sort it out for yourself. And there were many times that I dealt with stuff myself and never ever shared it. Because you get in the habit of it. Well, this is me and this is what I've got to sort out because I'm responsible for this. Whereas maybe when you're in a relationship, you can fall into that trap of, I feel really awful and, you know, and I need you to sort it out. I don't know. I think everybody should live on their own for a period of time in their lives because they learn to be self-sufficient. I mean, when I meet so many people who've gone from living at home, getting married, and going into a relationship, and then maybe another relationship and another relationship, they've never learnt that being alone and having that self-care and getting to know themselves and being self-reliant and being responsible.
Absolutely.
I'm not knocking relationships by any means. but
I also think you can go the other way and become too self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's knowing when to ask for help as well.
Yeah, because I know there's been times in my life, and funnily enough, I did an exercise on core valued, or actually it was called core desired feelings, and this was really interesting. So 2 came up that were I wanted to experience freedom. Another one which was really beautiful was luminescence, and that came to me in a dream, and that was much more just wanted to feel really completely wonderful in myself. So it wasn't just like I want to feel sexy or attractive, it's more a kind of whole inner, I want to be able to express myself and just be me. It was that. The third one that came up was I want to feel supported, and I was horrified because I very rarely ask for help. But, you know, the more I think about it and the more coming back to how I think really I now want to look for a more kind of primary poly relationship or partner, is because I actually although I'm really self-sufficient and really good at looking after myself and very independent, it might actually be quite nice to have someone else to lean on sometimes.
Yeah. I totally agree with you there. There are times when I just feel, I would like that significant other at times, that special person that I could go to and say, oh, can I have a hug? Or can I share this with you? And I have got friends that I can do that, but it's not the same.
It's not, and I agree. And I have close friends that I could exactly do that. I could either have a conversation on Skype or I can meet them in person, because my friends are all over the place, and even my family is all over the place. My sister's in Canada, but yeah, sometimes it would just feel like, oh God, someone's kind of got my back. But then maybe it's important that we have our own back, because ultimately, I don't know.
No, and I think that's one of the things I hear, that people say what they want from a relationship, that their partner has got their back.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what it is, that they're the backstop, that we can fly and we can be independent and we can live our own lives and do our own thing. And there are times you're going to fall out and it's not going to be perfect, but that person's there. They're their backstop.
There's someone else that actually really cares about you.
Yes.
It's nice to feel cared for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, we all want this as humans, don't we?
Of course we do. We're sociable beings, and that's what we want.
Connection with people, and that to me is what real connection's about.
Yeah.
There's someone, someone's kind of looking out for you and cares for you and appreciates you and respects you, and you have a good old laugh with them, and it's fun having sex with them, and just all these kind of things that are lovely.
It's been lovely chatting today, Kate. I really, really love chatting with you anyway, and exploring different ideas, and I think that's what's been so nice. And I think we've got the myriad of different situations and and ideas. And again, I'm going to reiterate to our listeners that there are our ideas, and we're not asking anyone to take them on board. They're kind of talking points, things to think about, things to just consider, which I think hopefully is as human beings that's what we're doing with our lives anyway, just exploring things. But so
no right or wrong.
No. So is there anything you want to say before we finish?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything, didn't we?
I don't know. I'm sure we could have a lot more conversations about this, because we talked quite a lot the last time we just had a chat, didn't we?
That's true.
So if people would like to get in touch with you regarding your yoga, the details will be on your show note, on my show notes, our show notes. But do you want to tell anyone who's not got that detail in front of them how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. The first place to get hold of me is through my website. So that's www.katebaconyoga.com. Quite easy to remember. Just my name with yoga on the end of it.
Great. So there's no full stops in the middle.
Got a contact form, email address, etc. is all on the website.
Great.
Thank you.
It's been great fun, and I thank you so much for chatting with me today. I've really enjoyed it. So you can find all the information about this show in the show notes, and you can find lots more on my website, www.yourrelationshipspecialist.co.uk, including the link to my podcasts, and you can also sign up on my newsletter, which has lots more tips and offers. So until next time, bye for now.